Pottery has travelled with people for millennia. For me, this is illustrated perfectly by the ginger jar, a form I associate with Chinese pottery. So I'm making one in Penang, a city shaped by Chinese migration. I'll be working in 2 very different spaces, starting with the Penang Pottery Club. I'm using 800 grams of clay for the base and 200 grams of clay for the lid. I'm using local clay and it has a bit of tooth, very similar to the clays I use back home. The Penang Pottery Club have kindly allowed us to video in their very natural outdoor space. It's a real relief to escape the coldness of a Melbourne winter. So I've centered and flattened the top of the clay, and now I push down into the clay. Now, one thing to remember when you want quite a narrow base is you don't want to make the clay too wide. You want to start with the diameter of the clay just a little wider than the base of the final pot. Of course, you can trim away some clay, but it really is quite difficult to bring a very wide pot into a narrow pot once you've started to form walls. So once I've got the height, I start to shape the clay. I'm trying to keep the top and bottom quite narrow and bring the middle section out. And now I'm in a more contemporary pottery space in the middle of Georgetown. Ginger jars can be so many different shapes, from very utilitarian to very elaborate. I'm making mine a little more elegant than a pickle jar, but I still want it to be functional. Once I'm happy with the basic shape, I want to create quite a defined neck. This is important so that the lid doesn't slide off. There's a bit of magic in the way a ginger jar's lid fits the neck and stays on without sliding around. And so finally, I measure the interior width of the mouth. And I'm ready to make the lid. So I center the 200 grams of clay and flatten. I push down into both the center of the lid and a little in from the rim. So I'm creating a channel. Now, it's the rim of the jar that has to fit into this channel. The inner wall of the lid fits into the mouth of the jar. The outer wall of the lid sits on the body. Utilitarian ginger jars from the past are not uncommon, but in many cases the lids haven't survived. Ginger jars were used to transport food all over the world. In fact, you can still buy Chinese pickles in ceramic jars. Now, I've set aside my pots to dry to leather hard, and I'm ready to trim. I haven't wired through the ginger jar because I'm going to use it as a chuck. So a chuck just holds your pot in place while trimming. I'm just going to round that top edge, and I'm planning on leaving the top quite flat. In terms of utility, this would mean that you could actually stack ginger jars. If you haven't already done so, remember to subscribe, like and comment. It's much appreciated. Ginger jars have also been repurposed into lamp vases and of course vases. And then I just smooth the lid with a rib. Once the lid is smooth, I set the lid aside and I'm going to wire through. Now, I'm happy with the shape of the base, so I'm not going to trim the base much. In fact, I'll just run my finger around the base and make a bit of an indent in the base. The indent will just help my pot sit well. And after a quick check to make sure everything fits together, I set aside to dry fully. I bisque fire. And now I'm ready to glaze. I glaze by pouring a white liner glaze on the inside of my pot. I've discussed this in other videos, but essentially I want the inside of my pot to be functional. I carefully clean any dribbles away. And I glaze the inside of the lid as well. And then, as a nod to tradition, I'm using a deep green glaze on the outside, reminiscent of the Shiwan ginger pots from Foshan in the Guangdong region. 2 coats of this glossy green glaze should do it. The glazes on some of these pots was often really runny. Okay, we'll speed through the glazing. I'm going to leave a band of the raw clay at the base, but then I just want to spend a bit of time at the end cleaning the glaze lines, and then I glaze fire. Here we are. When I started this video, I didn't know how it would all tie together. Nearly all my videos end with a finished piece, so here it is, my version of a ginger jar. It's kind of pieced together from different ideas. Of course, because I like that practical aspect to pottery, I'm going to try it out and I'll use it for ginger. Thanks for sticking with me for this project. A simple form that's just so universal. For more pottery projects with lids, check out my fermentation crock video. And as always, happy potting.